My mother left my 5-year-old daughter on a bench in the hospital where I was born. She said it was a punishment for refusing to sign as a guarantor for my brother's loan, but there were witnesses. Months later, the judge told her 5 words she will never forget. My phone rang at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a random Tuesday. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer because I was in an important meeting, but something made me slide the green button. Hello? This is Nurse Patricia from San Jose General Hospital. We have a girl here, approximately 5 years old, who says her name is Emma, and we believe you are her father. The world stopped. Emma was with my mother. They were supposed to be at home watching children's movies and eating popcorn as they had planned that morning. Excuse me, there must be a mistake. My daughter is with her grandmother. The nurse paused for what felt like an eternity. Sir, the girl has been here alone for 2 hours. An elderly lady brought her, sat her on this bench, and told her to wait. Then she left. I ran out of that office without any explanation. The journey to the hospital was the longest 20 minutes of my life. My mind couldn't process what I had heard. My mother, no matter what problems we had, would never abandon Emma. It had to be a misunderstanding. But when I arrived at the hospital and saw my daughter sitting on that cold bench, her little eyes red from crying so much and hugging her doll as if it were the only thing she had left in the world, I knew there was no misunderstanding. Daddy! Her broken little voice broke my heart. I ran to her and hugged her so tightly I thought I was going to hurt her. Nurse Patricia approached with a serious expression. Sir, we need to talk. What happened here was not normal. To understand how we got to that moment, I have to tell you about my family. My mother, Carmen, was always a woman of strong character. Manipulative would be the most accurate word, but for years, I justified it as protective, motherly love. She had that special ability to make all her children feel like we owed her something, that we had never done enough for her. My younger brother, Rodrigo, was her favorite. 2 years younger than me, but with the mentality of an irresponsible teenager at 32. While I worked since I was 16 to help at home, he dedicated himself to changing university majors 3 times, starting businesses that went bankrupt within a year, and accumulating debts that, magically, Mom always ended up paying. Or rather, I ended up paying because Mom convinced me it was my duty as an older brother. The pattern was always the same. Rodrigo would mess up, Mom would cry, I would fix the problem. If I didn't, I was the cruel son who didn't love his family. If I did, Rodrigo never learned the consequences of his actions. This time it was different. Rodrigo had found the love of his life, according to him, and wanted to buy a house to impress her. The problem was that his credit history was more stained than a mechanic's shirt. He needed a guarantor and, of course, he came to Mom's house with his charming smile and his usual promises. Son, you need to help your brother. It's to start a family. It's serious this time. Mom had come to my house on a Sunday morning, unannounced, as she always did when she wanted something important. Emma was playing in the garden, oblivious to the storm that was brewing. I can't, Mom. I already lent money for his last business, and he still hasn't paid me back. I'm not going to risk my assets again. Her face changed completely. The mask of a loving mother disappeared, and the cold woman I knew very well appeared. What assets, son? Everything you have, you owe to this family. I raised you. I gave you an education. I taught you values, and now that your brother needs help, you turn your back on him. For the next 2 hours, she deployed her entire emotional arsenal. She cried. She reminded me of every sacrifice she had made for me. She compared me to parents who had more grateful children. Emma came into the house at some point and saw her grandmother crying. Why is Grandma crying, Daddy? For nothing, my love. Grandma is leaving now. But Mom didn't leave. She stayed all afternoon, alternating between pleas and reproaches. When she finally understood that my answer was definitive, she stood up from the sofa with a calmness that chilled my blood. All right, son. I see that your brother, and I mean nothing to you. But remember my words, you will regret this decision. That same week, Rodrigo called me, furious. Because of you, Mom is sick with nerves. She can't even eat from the sadness you gave her. I tried to explain that it wasn't personal, that I simply couldn't risk my financial stability again, but for Rodrigo, I had always been the selfish brother who had money and didn't want to share. The following weeks were tense. Mom didn't answer my calls. She didn't come to see Emma as she did every weekend. My daughter asked about her grandmother, and I didn't know what to answer. Until that fateful Tuesday arrived. That morning, Mom had appeared at my door as if nothing had happened. I came to get my granddaughter. We're going to spend the day together. We haven't had grandma time in a long time. Emma had jumped with happiness. She adored her grandmother, and I felt relieved that things were returning to normal. I even thought that maybe I had exaggerated, that maybe we could resolve our differences. How naive I was. Now, sitting in that hospital room with Emma in my arms, Nurse Patricia was explaining what she had witnessed. The elderly lady arrived with the girl around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. She told her to sit here and wait for her dad to come for her soon. The girl asked where she was going, and the lady replied that she had important things to do and walked towards the exit. At first, we thought maybe she had gone to the bathroom or to do some quick paperwork, but when an hour passed and the girl started to cry, I approached her to ask what was wrong. Nurse Patricia paused and looked directly at me. I recognized the lady who brought her. It's Carmen Rodriguez, isn't it? She gave birth here 34 years ago. I was an assistant back then, but I remembered her face because it was a complicated birth. I nodded, completely surprised that she remembered her after so many years. When I realized she had abandoned the girl, I went to the archive and looked for her birth record. There it was, registered as her son, with your updated contact information from the visits she made when Emma was born. What she told me next chilled my blood. My mother had not only abandoned Emma, but she had done it in the same hospital where I was born. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a message. Sir, in my 20 years working here, I've seen many things, but I had never seen a grandmother deliberately abandon her granddaughter. The way she left, without looking back, without showing concern when the girl cried, that was not an accident. Emma clung tighter to me when she heard the nurse's words. She had understood more than I would have liked. Nurse Patricia had asked them to check the security cameras. Everything was recorded. My mother arriving with Emma, my mother pointing to the bench, my mother ignoring my daughter's questions, my mother walking towards the exit with a firm step, without looking back even once. I never thought my own mother would be capable of abandoning a 5-year-old girl to teach me a lesson, but there was the evidence, and in my arms was my traumatized daughter, asking me why Grandma had left her alone. That night, after Emma finally fell asleep in my bed because she was afraid of being alone, I dialed my mother's number. She answered on the first ring, as if she had been waiting for my call. I hope you have reflected on the importance of family, son. Her voice sounded calm, almost satisfied, as if she had just completed a routine household chore instead of traumatizing a 5-year-old girl. Mom, how could you do that? Emma was crying for 2 hours in that hospital. 2 hours wondering why her grandmother had abandoned her. I didn't abandon her. I left her in a safe place. I knew they would call you. I just wanted you to understand the consequences of turning your back on your family. The coldness in her voice left me speechless. This was not the woman who had raised me, who had consoled me when I was a child. Or maybe she was, and I had never realized. Mom, she's a child. She had nothing to do with the loan issue. It has everything to do. Emma is part of this family, just like Rodrigo. If you don't want to help your brother, then you don't deserve for me to take care of your daughter. I hung up the phone, trembling with rage. I couldn't sleep that night. Emma woke up 3 times screaming, saying she didn't want Grandma to leave her again. The next day, my phone didn't stop ringing. First, it was Rodrigo. Congratulations, brother. Now Mom is devastated because you treated her like a criminal, all because of your selfishness. I explained what had happened, but he already had his version of events. According to Mom, Emma had gotten lost in the hospital while she was doing some medical paperwork, and I had overreacted, accusing her of abandonment. Mom would never do something like that. You're paranoid. You surely misinterpreted the situation. Then my Aunt Mercedes called, Mom's older sister and her main ally in family drama. My son, your mom told me what happened. Poor thing, she's very unwell. She says you accused her of horrible things. A mother never abandons a grandchild. It didn't matter how much I explained to them about the security cameras, the nurses' testimonies, or my mother's implicit confession. The family's official version was that I had misinterpreted an accident and was using that as an excuse to be cruel to my mother. The family pressure was constant. Cousins, uncles, even neighbors who had known Mom for decades called me to tell me I was exaggerating, that grandmothers make mistakes, but that doesn't make them monsters. Forgive her, my son. She's your mother. She's done so much for you all her life. But what hurt me the most was seeing Emma. My cheerful and outgoing little girl had become quiet and clingy. She didn't want to go to kindergarten. She didn't want to stay with anyone but me. At night, she would ask me if she had done something wrong for Grandma not to want her anymore. I took her to a child psychologist, Dr. Martinez. After 3 sessions, she asked to speak with me alone. Emma has clear symptoms of abandonment anxiety. She is constantly alert, expecting important people in her life to leave her alone. This is consistent with a traumatic abandonment event. I told her the whole story. Dr. Martinez listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes. Sir, what you describe was not an accident or a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate act of emotional manipulation, using a minor as an instrument. That has serious psychological consequences. She gave me a detailed report on Emma's emotional state and suggested I consult with a lawyer. The words emotional abuse and danger to the minor appeared several times in the document. That same week, my mother showed up at my work. The receptionist called me, surprised. Sir, there's a lady here who says she's your mom. She says she needs to talk to you urgently. I went down to meet her and found her in the lobby, dressed in black as if it were a funeral, with red eyes and a handkerchief in her hand. Son, we need to fix this. The family is falling apart because of your stubbornness. Mom, you abandoned my daughter. There's nothing to fix until you acknowledge what you did. I didn't abandon anyone. Emma was safe in the hospital. I knew they were going to call you. I just wanted to give you a scare so you would reconsider about your brother. There it was again, the partial confession wrapped in justification. She had used Emma as a tool for emotional blackmail, but according to her, that wasn't abandonment because she had a plan. A scare, Mom? You gave a 5-year-old girl a scare, making her believe you had abandoned her? Don't you see anything wrong with that? You exaggerate everything. Emma won't even remember this in a few months. Children are resilient. But I knew that wasn't true. Emma would remember. She had already shown me with her nightmares and constant anxiety. My mother changed tactics. The tears disappeared, and the calculating woman I knew appeared. All right, son, if that's how you want things. But don't expect me to be available when you need help with Emma. Don't expect me to come take care of her when you're sick or have emergencies. You've decided I'm a bad grandmother, so I won't be a grandmother at all. It was the final blackmail. For 5 years, she had been my main support network with Emma. When I had to travel for work, when Emma got sick and couldn't go to kindergarten, when I simply needed a few hours off. Now she was taking all that away because I hadn't given in to her manipulation. All right, Mom, if that's your decision. She left my office with the same coldness with which she had abandoned Emma in the hospital. But I had already made my decision too. That afternoon, I called the lawyer Dr. Martinez had recommended. I told him the whole story, showed him Emma's psychological report, and asked if I had any legal recourse. The lawyer, Mr. Hernandez, listened to me attentively and reviewed all the documents. This is a clear case of endangering the welfare of a minor. The fact that she is the grandmother does not exempt her from legal responsibility. Furthermore, we have testimonies, video evidence, and the psychological report. We can proceed both civilly and criminally. But he warned me about the family implications. Sir, this will permanently divide your family. A lawsuit is not something that is easily forgiven. It's already divided, Mr. Hernandez. My mother chose to use my daughter as a weapon. Now I choose to protect her. 2 weeks later, my mother received the lawsuit notification. The main charge was endangering the welfare of a minor. The secondary charges included emotional damage and temporary abandonment of a minor. Rodrigo called me hysterical that same night. Are you crazy? Are you going to put Mom in jail for a misunderstanding? You're a monster. It's not a misunderstanding, Rodrigo. And if you had been a responsible brother from the beginning, none of this would have happened. War was declared. The family split completely, those who believed Mom's version versus the few who had seen the evidence and understood the gravity of the situation. But for the first time in years, I slept peacefully. I was protecting my daughter, and that was all that mattered. The day of the trial arrived 3 months later. During that time, my mother had hired the best lawyer she could afford, an older man in an expensive suit who specialized in family cases. His strategy was obvious from the first moment. I was an ungrateful son who had misinterpreted an accident to get revenge on his mother. The courtroom was divided like at a contentious wedding. On one side, Mom with Rodrigo, Aunt Mercedes, and several relatives who supported her. On the other side, me with Emma and the few relatives who had seen the evidence and understood the gravity of the situation. Emma was not required to testify because of her age, but Dr. Martinez had prepared an updated report on her emotional state 3 months after the incident. My daughter still had nightmares and anxiety episodes when separated from me. Mom's lawyer began by painting her as a devoted grandmother who had made a minor error in judgment, a 68-year-old woman who had dedicated her life to raising her children and caring for her granddaughter. Your Honor, we are talking about a confusion that lasted 2 hours. My client took the minor to the hospital because she had a medical appointment and asked her to wait while she sorted out some paperwork. When she came out, the minor was no longer where she had left her. It was a blatant lie, but it sounded convincing. Mr. Hernandez had warned me this would happen. Then the testimonies began. The first was Nurse Patricia. The lady arrived with the child at approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon, sat her on the bench in the waiting area, and told her verbatim, "Your dad will be here for you soon. Stay seated right here." The girl asked where she was going, and the lady replied that she had important things to do. Mom's lawyer tried to discredit her testimony. "Nurse, you were attending to other patients. It's possible you didn't hear the conversation correctly." "Sir, I was less than 3 meters away. I clearly heard what she said." Besides, the girl remained on that bench for 2 hours. If her grandmother had been doing paperwork in the hospital, we would have a record of her presence. The fatal blow came when they projected the security camera video. There it was, Mom arriving with Emma, pointing to the bench, talking briefly with her, and then walking directly towards the exit. Not towards the consulting rooms, not towards admissions, directly towards the street. The video also showed Emma waiting patiently for the first 30 minutes, then starting to look nervous, and finally crying when she realized her grandmother wasn't coming back. When it was Mom's turn to testify, she arrived dressed like a frail grandmother, with a cane I had never seen her use before, and speaking with a trembling voice. "Your Honor, I love my granddaughter more than my own life. I would never harm her. Yes, I made a mistake by leaving her alone, but I had a medical emergency, and I thought she would be safe for a few minutes." Mr. Hernandez pressed her during cross-examination. "Mrs. Carmen, in the video, it is clear that you walk towards the exit, not towards any medical office. Can you explain that discrepancy?" My mother hesitated for the first time. I got confused. I was nervous about my medical appointment. "Ma'am, we checked all hospital records for that day. You did not have any medical appointment scheduled." Furthermore, we have your recorded phone confession where you tell your son that this was a punishment for not helping your other son with a loan. Mom's lawyer stood up, objecting, but the damage was done. She had lied under oath. The most devastating testimony was Dr. Martinez's. Emma presents symptoms consistent with abandonment trauma, recurrent nightmares, severe separation anxiety, and regression in behaviors she had already overcome. This is not the result of a 2-hour confusion, but of the perception of deliberate abandonment by an important attachment figure. When Mom's lawyer tried to minimize the psychological damage, the doctor was blunt. "Sir, for a 5-year-old girl, 2 hours feeling abandoned by her grandmother in an unfamiliar place is equivalent to an eternity. The psychological impact is real and measurable." During the recess, I saw Mom talking animatedly with Rodrigo and her lawyer. She seemed confident, as if everything was going according to her plan. She even smiled at me when our eyes met, as if saying this was just another game she was going to win. But when we returned to the courtroom and the judge began to speak, her expression changed completely. The judge was an older man with a serious face and decades of experience in family cases. He had reviewed all the evidence with meticulous attention. "I have carefully reviewed all the testimonies, the physical evidence, and the psychological reports presented in this case. The facts are clear and indisputable." Mom straightened up in her chair, preparing for the victory she expected. Mrs. Carmen Rodriguez deliberately abandoned a 5-year-old minor in a hospital, not as a result of confusion or a medical emergency, but as a calculated act of emotional manipulation directed towards the minor's father. The courtroom fell into absolute silence. I could see the confidence drain from my mother's face. This behavior constitutes endangering the welfare of a minor and causing intentional emotional harm. The use of a child as an instrument of emotional blackmail is particularly reprehensible. The judge paused and looked directly at my mother. "Mrs. Rodriguez, during this process, you have shown a total lack of remorse for your actions. You have lied under oath about your motivations and have consistently minimized the trauma you caused your granddaughter." Mom tried to speak, but the judge raised his hand to silence her. "Therefore, this court determines that you are guilty of endangering the welfare of a minor and causing intentional emotional harm." Then came the part that would change everything forever. "Mrs. Rodriguez, after evaluating all the evidence and your behavior during this process, this court has reached an inevitable conclusion." The judge looked at her intently and uttered the 5 words she would never forget: "You do not deserve to be a grandmother." The courtroom erupted. Rodrigo shouted it was an injustice, Aunt Mercedes began to cry, and Mom was paralyzed as if she had been slapped. But the judge wasn't finished. "Therefore, I order a permanent restraining order prohibiting any contact between Mrs. Carmen Rodriguez and the minor Emma. Furthermore, I order the payment of damages in the sum of 50,000 pesos to cover the minor's psychological treatment." Mom finally reacted, standing up shakily. "Your Honor, please. She's my granddaughter. I love her." "Ma'am, love is not demonstrated by using children as tools of manipulation. Your right to see your granddaughter ended the moment you chose to traumatize her to punish your son." As we were leaving the courthouse, Rodrigo caught up with me in the parking lot. "I hope you're happy. You just destroyed Mom." "No, Rodrigo. Mom destroyed herself when she decided to use Emma as a pawn in her manipulation games. If she had been responsible from the beginning, none of this would have happened." That night, Emma slept in her own bed for the first time in months. She didn't have nightmares. When I asked her how she felt, she told me something that broke and healed my heart at the same time. "Daddy, I'm not afraid anymore that you'll leave me. The judge said you'll always take care of me." 6 months later, Emma is completely recovered, according to Dr. Martinez. Mom tried to contact me several times, but the restraining order is clear. Rodrigo had to get his loan through other means and is finally learning to be responsible for his own decisions. Sometimes family isn't the blood you share, but the people you choose to protect. And I chose to protect my daughter from a grandmother who believed that love is bought with blackmail and demonstrated with manipulation. Justice sometimes comes late, but when it does, the 5 right words can change everything forever. For a long time, I wondered if I did the right thing, if I was too harsh, if I should have forgiven and moved on as everyone told me to do. But every time I see Emma playing happily in the park, without fear of being abandoned, without nightmares waking her up crying, I know I made the right decision. I learned that true love doesn't blackmail. It doesn't use children as tools. It doesn't say, if you love me, you must do this. Real love protects. It doesn't manipulate. I also learned that saying it's family is not a valid excuse to allow emotional abuse. Being a mother, father, brother, or grandmother doesn't give you a license to hurt. Family titles are earned with actions, not inherited with blood. To all the parents listening to me, our job is to protect our children, not sacrifice them to maintain family peace. When someone hurts your child, it doesn't matter if it's your own mother. Your duty is to defend your child, not defend the aggressor. And if someone in your family uses your children as pawns in their power games, remember the 5 words that changed my life. Some people simply don't deserve certain privileges. Emma is now 7 years old. Sometimes she asks about her grandmother, and I explain to her that there are adults who make bad decisions and have to live with the consequences. She understands it better than many adults in my family. Justice doesn't always come quickly, but when it does, it's worth every battle you had to fight to protect what really matters.